everybody. David Starr here. I hope you're all well. I want to welcome my colleagues, Rabbi Elizabeth Bonnie Cohen and Rabbi Hamilton. Hi,
Hi,
guys.
Rockstar. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hey, great to see you both. Great to be back with you.
We are talking about Parsha Lech Lecha today, which begins in the book of Genesis, chapter 12, with a very famous scene of, departure with Abraham basically going on this journey that is going to, in many ways, describe his whole life. On the one hand, so much of Jewish life is about community, building community, loving it, feeling like your identity is tied up with it. On the one hand, on the other hand, Abraham is in some ways is this deeply lonely figure. His origin story is one of, in effect, leaving everything behind. So I thought that might be an interesting place to begin. Is the spiritual life about loneliness and or about love and people and community?
It's a beautiful question. I think as I'm thinking about Abraham's story, I think so much of it is where we begin the story. So often we start the story with Lech Lecha, with this divine command to go out, to leave your father's house. Abraham's story in the Torah, anyway, starts last week, and with his lineage and with the first many decades of his life. He even begins his physical journeying with his father and his brothers and a whole group of family to get to this point before he's even called with Lech Lecha. And even then we see him leave. Yes, he leaves his father, he leaves behind his father, but he leaves also with a group of people. He doesn't leave by himself. We hear that he leaves with his wife, with the people that were surrounding him and supporting him on his journey.
The other point I would add to those those powerful points, Rabbi Bonnie Cohen, is this notion that he, of course, enjoys companionship, a unique companionship with God, and he is a revolutionary figure, a pivotal figure, and as such, he's going to stand out. He's going to stand apart. And 2 points to make. One is that we know from archaeological evidence of that period that there's massive migration toward Mesopotamia, toward the Tigris and Euphrates. As you say, Rabbi Starr, this notion of Abraham sort of going with his caravan, with the family, Rabbi Bonnie Cohen, that you described, in response to God's call, he becomes the most influential human being of all time, mainly acknowledging that more than half of the world today as monotheists are his spiritual descendants. And that's been the case really for 4,000 years. So yes, it's lonely. And at the same time, it's profoundly influential.
Maimonides says, his greatness is a function of the fact that he has this kind of prophetic genius that he sees things that nobody else sees. But you're both reminding us that he's very much of a three-dimensional figure, and that's part of the greatness of the Torah is how very three-dimensional it is.
I think part of Abraham's power, for me anyway, is that he's pretty flawed in some of those other dimensions of himself. He's a pretty flawed husband. He's a pretty flawed father. He's even a flawed son in some ways. And so I think that when we look at Abraham in his wholeness, we have an appreciation for the fact that a revolutionary, one who is swimming against the stream, this kind of lone, spiritually rooted but tremendously influential character, is also deeply flawed. And there's something powerful about that.
Absolutely. I agree very strongly. It makes him quite relatable and extremely approachable for us as flawed individuals as well, who struggle a lot. I know a lot. There are very few people I have met in my life who would get A pluses at career, family life, and community connections and relationships and friendships. Almost invariably, every one of us prioritizes one over the others and ends up in different places at the end of our lives. So Abraham's essential humanity and frailty in this area is extremely helpful.
Wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Stay warm and dry.
Shabbat shalom.